South Africa has taken a daring leap into the spotlight. At the recent BRICS summit, President Cyril Ramaphosa delivered a closing speech that not only captivated attendees, but also sent ripples through the corridors of power across the globe. With bold declarations and a passionate call for justice, he challenged the status quo and set the stage for a new era of international relations. But what did Ramaphosa say to everyone talking? Let's dive into President Ramaphosa's bold remarks that have the world talking. Could his stance on Israel signal a dramatic shift in global alliances? Chapter 1. South Africa's unique position. Let's focus on South Africa's unique role within the BRICS alliance. As the only African nation in BRICS, South Africa has a distinct responsibility to represent the interests of the continent. This is not just a ceremonial role. It carries significant weight in shaping discussions around global issues that affect developing nations. President Cyril Ramaphosa noted, "Our history compels us to stand up for those who are oppressed." This statement reflects South Africa's journey from apartheid to democracy. The country has a rich history of fighting for human rights and social justice, which informs its foreign policy today. But why is this important? Well, South Africa serves as the bridge between BRICS and African nations. It advocates for African interests while also promoting continental integration and development. This dual role enhances its significance within the group. South Africa's strategic location at the southern tip of Africa enhances its importance in global trade routes and maritime security. This geographical advantage positions South Africa as the key player in facilitating economic cooperation between BRICS and African nations. However, South Africa's unique position also requires a delicate balancing act. While deepening ties with BRICS partners, especially China and Russia, the country must also maintain positive relations with Western nations. This diplomatic juggling act reflects South Africa's pragmatic approach to foreign policy. Chapter 2. Key themes of speech. In his address, President Ramaphosa highlighted several key themes: regional connectivity, conflict resolution, and multilateralism. Let's break these down. First up is regional connectivity. Ramaphosa stressed, "We must connect our economies through better infrastructure." He proposed initiatives aimed at enhancing transport networks among BRICS countries. Improved infrastructure can facilitate trade and economic growth among member states. Thinking about it, better roads and railways mean reduced costs and faster delivery times. Next is conflict resolution. Ramaphosa called for peaceful negotiations in ongoing global conflicts. Dialogue is essential. We cannot resolve conflicts through violence. This is particularly relevant given the current geopolitical climate. His emphasis on dialogue mirrors South Africa's transition from apartheid, a process marked by negotiation rather than armed conflict. Finally, we have multilateralism. Ramaphosa stated, "In an interconnected world, we must work together." He argued that global challenges require collective action rather than unilateral approaches. This commitment to multilateralism reinforces the idea that no nation can tackle these issues alone. By emphasizing multilateralism, Ramaphosa positioned BRICS as an alternative platform for dialogue that includes voices often marginalized in traditional forums like the United Nations. It's about creating spaces where diverse perspectives can be shared and heard. Chapter 3. The situation in Gaza. One of the most striking aspects of Ramaphosa's speech was his condemnation of the violence in Gaza. He described the situation as a humanitarian catastrophe. What we are witnessing in Gaza is unacceptable. His call for immediate international intervention resonated with many leaders who share concerns about human rights violations in conflict zones. Ramaphosa highlighted the dire humanitarian situation faced by civilians. The suffering of innocent people cannot be ignored. He urged the international community to take action to alleviate this suffering and provide necessary aid. Ramaphosa reiterated South Africa's long-standing support for an independent Palestinian state based on pre-1967 borders with East Jerusalem as its capital. "We stand firmly with the Palestinian people in their quest for self-determination." This position aligns with numerous United Nations resolutions advocating for Palestinian rights, and reflects South Africa's commitment to justice. Chapter 4. Broader implications for Israel-Palestine relations. So what does this mean for Israel-Palestine relations? South Africa's vocal stance could influence broader international perspectives on this issue. As global power dynamics shift towards emerging economies like those in BRICS, there's potential for these nations to play a more significant role in advocating for Palestinian rights. Ramaphosa's call for adherence to international law highlights a growing sentiment among many nations advocating for justice in Palestine. We must uphold international law as a basis for resolving conflicts. Unify their stance around this issue, it could lead to increased pressure on Israel from various quarters. The growing influence of BRICS countries provides an opportunity to challenge traditional narratives surrounding Israel-Palestine relations dominated by Western powers. By presenting a united front on issues of justice and human rights, BRICS can amplify calls for accountability regarding violations committed against Palestinians. This shift could potentially reshape how international actors engage with both Israel and Palestine, encouraging more equitable discussions that prioritize human rights over political expediency. Chapter 5. Addressing other global conflicts. Moving beyond Gaza, Ramaphosa addressed other conflicts affecting African nations, such as Sudan and those within the Sahel region. Regarding Sudan, he stated, "We cannot turn a blind eye to suffering in Sudan." He urged fellow BRICS leaders to prioritize Sudan during discussions for immediate humanitarian assistance and long-term stability solutions. The Sahel region faces threats from terrorism and climate change, necessitating collaborative efforts from BRICS members to stabilize the area. Ramaphosa emphasized that addressing these challenges requires a unified approach among member states. Together, we must address instability in the Sahel. This highlights how interconnected issues like the environmental degradation can exacerbate existing vulnerabilities. As a result, communities become susceptible economically and socially. This vulnerability can lead individuals toward extremist ideologies that seek recruitment opportunities amid the chaos created by conflict or poverty conditions prevalent throughout much of this area today. By addressing these conflicts head-on, Ramaphosa underscores how vital it is for BRICS nations to collaborate on economic fronts and security matters. The stability of one nation can significantly impact its neighbors. Therefore, collective action becomes imperative. Chapter 6. The call for reform in global institutions. Now let's discuss one of Ramaphosa's most compelling points: the need for reforming global institutions like the United Nations Security Council. He argued that current structures often fail to represent emerging economies adequately. Logically, current structures often fail to represent emerging economies adequately. By advocating reforms aimed at increasing representation from emerging markets within bodies like the United Nations Security Council, Ramaphosa positioned himself as an advocate for constructive engagement. He showed a willingness to find solutions that benefit all parties involved. It highlights Ramaphosa's role as an advocate, his commitment to inclusive solutions, and his stance against power imbalances in international relations. This call for reform aligns with broader demands from developing countries seeking greater representation on global platforms. Ramaphosa emphasized that such reforms are essential for addressing contemporary global challenges effectively. He stressed the importance of ensuring that international institutions better reflect current geopolitical realities. Reforming institutions like the United Nations Security Council see and lead to more equitable decision-making processes. This would allow all voices to be heard, particularly those from developing nations. These countries have historically been marginalized in international discussions. Chapter 7. The importance of economic cooperation. Economic cooperation among BRICS nations was another focal point highlighted by Ramaphosa. He emphasized how collaboration can build resilience against global economic shocks. Our economies are interconnected. We must support each other. He proposed initiatives aimed at increasing intra-BRICS trade, something that could bolster economic stability among member states. Enhanced trade relations can help mitigate vulnerabilities exposed by global crises, such as pandemics or financial downturns. By promoting policies that encourage investment flows between the involved countries, Ramaphosa underscored the importance of fostering stronger ties built on trust and cooperation. He also emphasized attracting foreign investment into African economies through partnerships within BRICS. Ramaphosa stated, "Investing in Africa is investing in our shared future." By promoting the investment opportunities, South Africa aims to drive economic growth across the continent. The potential benefits of increased economic cooperation are immense for individual countries and regional stability. When economies work together, they create stronger markets capable of weathering external shocks while fostering innovation through shared knowledge and resources. Chapter 8. Reactions from Global Leaders. Let's look at how global leaders reacted following Ramaphosa's speech. Many leaders supported South Africa's stance on Palestine conflict resolution, praising his courage in addressing sensitive topics head-on. However, others criticized it as overly biased against Israel. Some Western leaders expressed concern such rhetoric could exacerbate tensions rather than foster dialogue. Responses varied significantly, depending on political affiliations and perspectives held by different countries involved. Some viewed Ramaphosa's remarks as empowering marginalized voices, logically, whereas others perceived them as threatening established norms surrounding diplomacy, traditionally employed to resolve disputes between parties involved. The speech may influence future diplomatic relations between BRICS countries and Western powers, particularly regarding Middle Eastern policies. As emerging economies assert their influence on global issues like Palestine, traditional powers may need to reconsider approaches taken previously if they wish to maintain relevant discussions surrounding these matters moving forward. The reactions highlight how complex international diplomacy can be, especially when navigating sensitive topics like Israel-Palestine relations, where opinions often diverge sharply based on historical context or national interests. Chapter 9. A Vision for Future Diplomacy. President Ramaphosa's speech at the BRICS summit presented a vision for a more equitable and collaborative global order. His address served to remind us that unity among nations is crucial in addressing shared challenges of poverty, inequality, and conflict, especially for those from the global south. He stated, "Together, we can create a world where justice prevails." By advocating collaboration among developing countries, he highlighted the transformative power collective action can have. This action can affect meaningful change, improving the lives of millions worldwide who suffer the consequences of systemic injustices. These injustices have been perpetuated over time due to a lack of representation in decision-making processes that directly impact these communities. As BRICS continues to evolve, South Africa's leadership will be pivotal in shaping discussions on key global issues, such as human rights, conflict resolution, and sustainable development. Future diplomacy will depend significantly on how emerging economies collaborate. Their cooperation will be crucial in advocating for justice and equity on behalf of marginalized communities worldwide. The world watches intently to see how South Africa's stance will shape global politics. Will Ramaphosa's bold move inspire others? Time will tell, but his closing speech has undoubtedly marked a pivotal moment in the fight for global justice and equality. If you find this video insightful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more updates on global affairs. Thanks for watching.